We are arguing in the house. My children is there as well. And I just felt like giving up. I said, this is it. This is the last straw. And so I couldn't do anything else but bawl out. I was on the floor, on my knees, and I had my arms in front of me on the floor, and I'm just crying. I'm crying. And in that moment, I wanted comfort. The year of the pandemic. The year of the pandemic. Year 2020. Individually was probably one of my worst years ever. Individually. And it had nothing to do with the actual coronavirus and what was going on around us in the world. As far as people losing their jobs, people losing their homes, people losing, so many different things that they've worked for. But for me, it was the worst year individually. I felt like I was overwhelmed in life. Overwhelmed in life. I felt like I was overworking. Okay, so I was with a full-time job, Southwest Airlines. And of course, all of what was happening, right? You were unable to pick up additional hours and things like that. But then also, I am an insurance agent. And so I'm an independent agent. Okay, I can contact you. I can reach out to others. I can reach out to my family, reach out to my friends. I can advertise it through social media. I just felt overworked as well because of, me being able to try to provide for my family. My marriage was horrible. My marriage was so bad that I felt like just walking out. Literally. We were actually separated. And we were going through so much in our marriage. So much within our marriage. Whether if it's bills. Whether if it's good habits, bad habits. There was so much going on. I just felt overwhelmed. I couldn't breathe. I didn't really see other options. I felt isolated from the world. And what I mean is, yes, when people does something new, whether if it's with their career, whether if it's with the sport, music, right, cooking, or changing from eating unhealthy to eating healthy, regardless of what it is, but when you're in that new thing, you're overwhelmed a lot of the times because of the rejections. You're overwhelmed a lot of the times because you have to learn something new in order to be great at it. And so there was just so much going on during the year of the pandemic to where I felt like I was broken. I felt empty. I felt alone. I felt like no one was there to actually support me, not just support me emotionally, but with the things that I was actually doing. Okay, so I can reach out to certain individuals, right, when it comes to insurance, and just expect a certain result from that reach out, right? For me contacting this person, oh yeah, they know my credibility. They know who I am. So they would at least sit down, right? And so I'm not necessarily worried about that, but because it was fairly new, there was just so much in my mind at the time where I felt like everyone was against me. I felt like no one was actually supporting me. Okay? At one point, not even my wife. It got so deep to the point where I told my wife, and this is actually right before, maybe a year before the pandemic, where I told my wife, I said, listen, and we have already been clients, right, to this insurance. We already had policies. But when I wanted to actually do this on the business end, I said, I'm going to have to study, right? Because at that time we were in debt. I said, I'm going to have to study and I'm going to focus. So I'm going to make some sacrifices just so that I can make sure I get my license and so that I can make sure that I learn and do well in this business, because this business will get us out of our problems. And at the time, it seems like, yeah, been there, done that, I've heard that. I was really dedicated. I was so serious. I said, look, if you decide to leave me, if you decide to divorce me, then you can do that. But I promise you that you will like the result of this, of me putting in this work. That's exactly what happened. We were beefing, we had conflict, and it got to the point to where I was able to study. I got my license, and I'm learning to the point to where I know what I am doing now. Because of that, I was able to get us out of that debt during that time. Okay, we was actually in a process of purchasing a home. Literally got pre-approved. Everything was in order. And so doing that, but then also having a full-time job. And at the time, my wife was not working. She wasn't working at the time, so she was at home with the kids. And so I'm working the full time. I'm doing the insurance and I'm just trying to bring it in. But I just felt overwhelmed just with life. Everything was happening. Even spiritually, I felt like giving up so many times. There's times that I have fallen. And because of my expectations, I just felt that I needed more from certain individuals. So I just felt isolated from the world, isolated from my family, isolated just from everything. And so in my mind, I was already going crazy. Crazy. And it gets to the point to where Angel catches COVID. Okay? And so when she caught COVID, this is when it was like new. Right? Everyone was like, yo, aliens are here. We don't know what this is that's going on. I'm confused. Whoever has it, you need to stay far, far away, right? So that was everyone's mentality, including myself. So when she caught COVID, we actually left the house and we went into my mom's house, right? So I brought the kids with me. And so I have the kids, for a few days or a couple weeks or whatever at my mom's house. And so keep in mind, like, I'm bringing all of these feelings with me as well. My mom has no idea, because one thing that I've noticed that's not a good thing to do is don't keep things in. Like, if you have that person you can trust, or if you have a counselor, open up and talk to them. Okay, so I go to my mom's house and I'm keeping all of this stuff in. I have built up frustration. Okay, and so one day, my mom wakes up in the morning and she says, hey, Ced, I'll be back. I'm going to the gym. And I was like, man, wow. So what I was doing was right? So I had my kids with me, but I had my planner open because I had many appointments that I needed to schedule. But because I left the house and then stayed temporarily in my mother's house, things changed. Okay, so now I had to rearrange the schedule to figure out when I can actually do an appointment with a client. When can I meet appointment with a client? And so I said, Ma, real quick, do you think you can just watch the kids just real quick for about an hour? She said, when? I said, I know it's short notice, but the client just asked me now in the next 45 minutes. She says, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. I said, please, it's just real quick. You can go to the gym after. She was like, no, can't you reschedule with the client? And so it wasn't anything that she said that made me feel some kind of way. But it was the feeling of feeling rejected. Again, time after time, just feeling that rejection. And so when she said no, can you just reschedule with the client? And my first thought was like, but this is helping us financially. Like, you're going to the gym, right? So I'm frustrated. I'm starting to say these things to my mom. I'm like, you're just going to the gym. Like, you're not getting paid, but I'm trying to help us. And at the time, my mom was actually going through something as well. And it was a change financially, it was a change in just a lot of how she was moving in life. So I'm like, if I meet with these individuals, like, this is my job, I could help us all financially. And for some reason, I just felt that I can help anyone. I can help everyone. Let's go. Grind, 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 grind. And so I'm upset. She says, no, why would I move what I have to do that I planned for already to try to help? And so I think that's what it took to kind of like start this process of breaking me down. Because of that rejection, I started to break down. I started to become real emotional. I said, ugh, how come everyone can't help me? Like, there's no one that supported me. I have to do this by myself. I'm doing this alone. Like, no one's here with me. And it's crazy how we speak immediately after, or how we feel emotionally. Because technically that's not true, right? My mom has always been there for me. She has always supported me. She's canceled some of her things that she had to do, for me as well. But in the moment, I'm just saying these things because that's how I felt. And then I break down and I'm just like, ah! So I scream. And then I started becoming teary-eyed. And I'm just like, dang, why me? Like, why me? Like, so now I'm still saying things verbally out loud. Why me? How come you guys couldn't have a savings plans for me? Like, how come I have to be the one to try to work at something? Or, like, how come my dad didn't have something in place? Or how come my mom didn't have something in place? Like, dang. Like, this is crazy. And then, now we're actually arguing, my mother and I. We are arguing in the house. My children is there as well. And I just felt like giving up. I said, this is it. This is the last straw. And so I couldn't do anything else but bawl out. I was on the floor, on my knees, and I had my arms in front of me on the floor, and I'm just crying. I'm crying. And in that moment, I wanted comfort. I did not express that, But in that moment, that's what I wanted. My kids came to me. Daddy, it's okay. It's okay, Daddy, don't cry. And they started to cry. I'm like, dang, like, what am I doing? Like, get up. Don't let them see you like this. And I just couldn't help it. So I'm crying. I became a child in that moment. And I wanted the attention from my mother in that moment. And I know that she was upset too. But in that moment, that's what I wanted. I wanted comfort. And then things get worse. Things get worse. Because of that feeling, I get up. And now I'm knocking chairs over. Right? I'm knocking things down in the house. And she's like, hey, don't tear up my stuff in the house. Like, don't do that. Like, just because you're angry. And I'm like, ah. And I'm just cursing. F that. F that. I'm sick and tired of this. No one's helping me. I don't have nobody supporting me. Like, you don't even care. You don't care. And I said, how can I get her attention? I go upstairs. My kids go into my mom's room. My mom's like, hey, go into my room. Go. She closed the door. But while she was doing that, I was already in my room. And I grabbed my gun. I grabbed my gun. And then I screamed. My mom walks into the room. And I told her, I said, I'm going to shoot myself. I said, I'm going to shoot myself. In that moment, so like intentionally, I knew that I wasn't in the place where I was going to do it. But I felt so hopeless because I didn't feel the comfort or the attention. That was the thought that came to mind of how can I get her attention. And in the moment, I realized that was the worst thing that I could have done. Ever. Because seeing the look that my mother had when I said those words with the gun in my hand was the worst feeling ever. Was the absolute worst feeling ever. Then the immediate second thought was, my children is in the house. They're hearing this stuff. They're in a whole another room. And I want to take just a side note. For any of you that are listening, that are watching, and you have experienced or are currently experiencing suicidal thoughts, please seek help. Whether if it was the resources that was provided to you, but please seek help. And so my mother comes into the room and she takes the gun from my hand and she leaves the room. Okay? And now I'm in this room alone by myself with my own thoughts. And there was only one question that came to mind. Just one question that actually came to my mind. How did I get here? How did I get here? How did I get here? Sometimes we give excuses for ourselves. Because immediately I'm like, oh, it's my lifestyle. Like it was how I was brought up. It's my upbringing. It was the decisions I made as a child. Or it was growing up with a single parent. Or it was me being in these things, right? And so in my mind, it brought me all the way back to the beginning. This is while I'm still in that room. It brought me all the way back to the beginning of the things that I experienced, the things that I saw, how in middle school, right, with all of our friends, things became really sexual at our age at that time. We had young girls, right, flashing their breasts. People were having sex, all of us, we had sex around this age. It's crazy. But then living in Lakeview, San Francisco, California, Lakeview, born and raised, kind of being around our environment, there was a cycle or a system that repeats itself time after time after time. And so I'm thinking about all of these things. I said, maybe I got to this place because of who I was or who I am or the lifestyle that I lived. I said, but it's not my fault. It's just the environment. It's not my fault. It's just the influence. I was inspired to do these things. It's not our fault. And I just couldn't pinpoint it. And it gets to the point to where things in my mind, I say, well, maybe it was some of the things that I've participated in these streets. Right? I went to jail when I was 16 years old. For the first time, for 16 years old. It was a gun charge. Okay? Police pulled me over when I was driving the car. I was with a friend who was on probation, so they searched everyone. They ended up going into my trunk, glove compartment. They ripped my seats up, right? But they found cocaine. They found a gun inside of my car. And so I was charged with possession. And they kept pushing my date back, pushing my court date back. So I'm just sitting in there waiting. They just kept pushing it back. And then I finally go to court. And because they went into my trunk with no warrant, they dropped the entire case. What's the point here? I'm saying, what if I blamed that kind of system on my life, saying that I would never be anything greater than what they see me as? What if I'm just that little hood boy, running around with his gun out? What if I'm just that player, messing with all of these women? What if that's just me? What if I can't commit to one person? What if having a job and a side gig is not good enough? What if I can't do this? What if I can't do that? And the worst part is, when I made this transformation and became a Christian, that was the hardest part in my life. Not the transformation, but the battle between the flesh and the spirit. I was so confused. So I'm coming up with all of these thoughts. I'm just blaming them. Like, that's the reason why I'm here today. That's the reason why I was feeling this. That's the reason why I wanted to end it. Because I believed that they said I was nothing. That's not it. None of those are the reasons. You shouldn't blame your past. You shouldn't blame how other people perceive you and what other people believe you to be. My issue was not knowing who I was. I was lost in identity. I had no idea who I was. I had no idea who I wanted to be. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I know who I want to be in Christ. In Christ. There might be times where you feel overwhelmed. There might be times where you feel exhausted. You feel isolated. You feel like your marriage is bad. But we always blame our upbringing. Or we always blame, well, my dad was single. Or, my mom was single the whole time. We never saw a great marriage. Or, my parents and grandparents, they never left anything. Or they never left property or money. That's what we blame. But instead, we need to take full ownership of our own actions, of our own choices. I know who I want to be in Christ. If you're listening or watching, when you see someone, you never know what they're going through. You never know what they've been through. But the point is that you're going through it. Like if they've been through something, you're going through something currently right now, just keep going through it. Like you never know. Like some of my closest friends haven't even heard what you guys are hearing right now. Just how I wanted to quit and give up. All because of attention that I was seeking. But I'm seeking attention from the wrong person. Like I put all of my faith and my trust in these humans. But we're all imperfect. But instead I need to put my trust, my faith in the Lord. Because he's all knowing, all powerful. And he's faithful. Who do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to live? Do what you need to do. Put in the work. And go ahead and get that life that you want to live. This is episode 1 on Ced Talk Podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, share this, share. But then even those, if you're just now hearing this, you like, dang, Ced, you never even told me about this. Feel free to reach out. We can definitely discuss more, but I just want you to know this. The purpose of this podcast is that I hope to inspire those or leave an impact on those that hear and is listening to this or that might be experiencing the same thing. That's the purpose. It's so that you can be inspired